this is Dominic, wedding DJ.
And this is Serena, wedding planner.
And together we are the Wedding Duo. We are here to talk all things weddings.
Planning a wedding can be stressful, but we are here to help.
So before you say, that's it, we're going to Vegas, don't go to Vegas.
Let's have some fun.
Join us as we answer your wedding questions and help navigate planning one of the biggest days of your life with
the Wedding Duo.
Welcome back once again, everyone, to our 18th episode of our lovely podcast.
Yes, known as the Wedding Duo podcast because we are the Wedding Duo. I'm Serena, wedding planner. You are?
I'm Dominic, wedding DJ.
And we are so excited to talk to you today about a topic that comes up quite often, I think, in the whole wedding realm. And that is the different types of wedding planning that is available to couples and what potentially will work best for you depending on what you're looking for, right?
I thought the first topic was your new haircut.
Yes. So if you watch our episodes on YouTube, which not a lot of people do.
I think there's one person out in Boston. Watches it, I think.
You'll notice that my hair changes with each episode because, it's like that episode gets its own hairstyle, I think is what I'm going for.
I'm going to change my hair really quick. Let me just lick my fingers and push my eyebrows down. There we go. There's my hairstyle.
If you didn't know, he's bald. I think we've mentioned this on
I've told you to tell people I have flowing locks of beautiful, thick, gorgeous. No, I don't.
It's
eyebrows.
Okay.
We also have a different backdrop. Our boxwood is being used. We're having an open house this week. Very exciting.
Very exciting.
Golden, receiving an Oscar, wave, blow kisses, thank my manager.
Right.
Play the music and get me off stage. Let's talk about our podcast topic.
Yes. So let's move on because most of you listening have no idea what our backdrop looks like. So today we're going to talk about something important, which is the different types of wedding planning, wedding coordination that are available to couples and what might work best for you. We're also going to talk about some services that we offer that you guys might not even know about that could potentially be really helpful. So the first thing we want to dive into is a lot of venues here in Texas and elsewhere require a planner to be on site for your event. And the other thing that they may do is actually have somebody in-house, a venue coordinator that does some of the coordination. And we want to talk a little bit about what does that mean? What is the difference between somebody who works at the venue who's going to coordinate your event and having an outside entity?
So yeah, I guess the extremes are you are DIY full stop. There's nobody professional in your grandpa's back 40 that you mowed for the wedding and you put up a tent. And then there's you're at a venue, you've got wall-to-wall professionals, including an outside wedding planner or wedding coordinator. But in the middle somewhere is, to her point, like if it's a venue, oftentimes the country clubs or the hotels will have somebody there that is your day of coordinator. However, it's very different. They use an employee as opposed to they own their own business, which like we do, where you're an outside entity that was hired specifically to cater to the couple and to run that event. Whereas the on-site coordinator, and again, we're not trying to hate on anybody. This is just the nature of that position. Oftentimes, they're there, they turn the lights on, they set the air conditioning, and then they either run the food or they're back in their office answering emails. So it could be you just don't know what entity. So you would want to ask them, like, how involved do you do a timeline, all that stuff, right? Right.
Because think about it this way, like my job, my position is full on your wedding planner for your day, right?
Every detail.
And even my smaller package, I'm going to be creating a timeline, doing a walkthrough, helping with setup, all those pieces. So you just really want to ask the questions ahead of time. What does it include? What does it not include? Because you don't want to be surprised the day of that the person you thought was going to be there helping you get down the aisle is like, no, I have to go help, set out chairs or something because they're not necessarily what you envisioned as far as a wedding planner.
And then we know this because this is what you did when you worked at this. They had a golf course, but there wasn't a golf. Was it?
Right. I got started at a Sun City. It was kind of like a over 50 community, but they had a venue. They had a wedding space.
But no, here in town, they had a golf course. The one you worked at here in town.
Oh, yes.
And this person that may be your coordinator could be like, okay, well, we turned the lights on. All the vendors are there. I said, smile and hi. I said hi and I smiled. And I shook everybody's hand. But then we're also having a golf tournament this weekend. Mm-hmm. They're running around doing all these other things. And what you had to do was you were there 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And then if there was an event on the weekend, you had to be there also. So it's just not the same
Right.
as somebody who you hired to be there to cater specifically to your event.
Exactly.
They get spread pretty thin, is my point.
They do. So even if you have someone available to you at the venue, it still may be something you want to consider to hire someone outside of that to help you with your wedding, because there is a lot more that these independent companies will provide for you. Now, the other thing we want to talk about is like the difference between packages that wedding planners offer, right? Like, what does it mean to have full scale wedding planning? And what does it mean to have like wedding management? And then what does it mean like day of coordinator, that term? So we'll start with full scale wedding planning. And the thing about that is it can be different, and any of these packages are going to be different depending on the company, right? But I oftentimes think of the couple that needs to or wants to hire a full scale wedding planner. Maybe they're in grad school, or, you know, they're working some crazy full-time jobs and they're just not interested or don't have the time to research vendors, to go to meetings, to help, you know, with all those details that you need to be a part of. So you need somebody in your corner the entire time helping you make those decisions.
Yeah. So and I've had couples like that. They're like, oh, we're very excited to be married. We want it to look beautiful. We want it to go well. I don't want to do any of the planning or the preparation. I don't want to go into meetings. I don't want to pick anything out. I just want to show up, get my dress, and say like, here I am.
Right.
And maybe the other person you would still have some guidance given to the people that would be planning your wedding, but you're not interested in going to the wedding fair and tasting the cupcakes and tasting the barbecue, whatever it is. You don't want, that's just not you. Or like you said, you both work full-time jobs. You're in school. All the other things that are happening. Yeah.
And the other thing too is, it's not necessarily true that just because you hire a full-scale wedding planner, you don't want to be involved. That's not what we're saying. It's just that this is one category of people out there, right? That they are going to have someone hold their hand through the whole process and help make them those decisions, or sometimes just make those decisions for them.
Right.
But there's a lot that goes into selecting vendors, the design element, the layout. All those pieces are going to be included in full-scale wedding planning.
Yeah,
right?
If you are just like, we got engaged, I have no idea what to do, bring in a professional. They'll help with all that stuff.
Yeah, they can even come in before you select a venue. If you are newly engaged and you're like, I don't know what is going to be the best place for me to have this event, and you want help with that piece, planners will go schedule tours for you, go with you to help you select those venues, give you guidance on, you know, maybe you have an estimated guest count and they're going to say, okay, these 5 venues fit that guest count really well. Let's go take a look.
Yeah. Or you say, I really want something with a view. I want an outside ceremony, an inside reception. Mm-hmm. Those tiny little details, maybe you hadn't even thought about it. Be like, well, yeah, I'd like to be outside, but I don't want to be outside the whole day.
Right.
I want to get married in the summer. It's going to be hot. I mean, people will muscle through a 20-minute ceremony, but they want to get inside, right? Oftentimes, and especially down here in Texas. But just those little details, we were just at an open house or wedding fair, this past weekend. And when somebody comes up and says, I say, when's your date? And they go, oh, we don't have one yet. We're still looking at venues. I go, well, what are you looking for? And they give me a few details. I can roll out half a dozen venues off the top of my head that I can say, oh, go check this one. I go check, because we in the wedding industry, we see all of them. We are there all the time at all these different venues. And we know the owners, we know the details, and a wedding planner will absolutely guide you in the right direction.
Yeah. And it's very helpful, but not to say that you can't do that research on your own.
Absolutely.
It's just going to take time, right? So that's the big factor a lot of times. That's why I mentioned initially, those of you that are in school and working or whatever your life is, sometimes you just don't have that extra time to put towards the research part of it, right? Because there are so many different decisions you have to make along the way. And if you have someone there in your corner saying, okay, let me give you 3 choices as opposed to 300 choices.
Oh, absolutely. That
is so helpful, right?
And I know some people say like, we're going to look at 25 venues, go. And then after the third one, you're like, you know what? The second one was fine, because it's very time consuming. It takes up an afternoon at the very least to drive out somewhere to see a venue, take a tour, talk to the people. So like I said, if somebody is there to say like, oh, these are the ones based on what you're looking for, here's the top 5. I say, let's start there.
Right. Now, as we kind of move along and talk about the smaller packages that may be available to you. A lot of coordinators, wedding planners will offer like a wedding management package. Sometimes it starts at like 6 weeks. Sometimes it starts like 3 months out, but that's more of the logistical pieces, right? When you're sending out your invitations, they're going to come in and help you with coordinating the timing, putting together a timeline, doing a final meeting with some of those vendors, right? They'll be there for that crunch time is what I like to call it, right? That 30-day to 90-day window. And so that works well, I think, a lot of times for couples who know that they want to turn it over to somebody, right? They know that they want to not have the extra pressure of making all those decisions and being that organized closer to the wedding day.
Well, for those of you out there that are listening that are engaged, you will know, depending on where you are in the process, think back on when you just got engaged and you went to an open house or a wedding fair and you walked around grabbing brochures. That is a different phase than you are 30 days out and you're like, oh my God, I'm going down the aisle in 30 days. And you're like, it gets very real. And the stress kind of slowly ramps up as you get closer to your wedding day. And that's where somebody started. We've had people come up and like, I didn't think I wanted a planner. And now I'm like, I am getting really nervous. And whether you're 6 months out, 3 months out, you can probably still find somebody if we're talking you in, if we're scaring you into getting one. We're not trying to scare you. We just want to, but I was getting at my point was there have been brides that I said, I'm DIYing it. I'm in charge. I've did a timeline. I've done all this, all you A-types out there. But when the day finally comes, you are in your dress, you are tucked away, people are arriving. You have to have somebody there,
right?
Even if it's Aunt Betty, who you said, because I always say 5 minutes turns into 20 minutes in the blink of an eye because everybody's showing up. And what do? They're like, oh my God, I haven't seen you in 15 years. Is this Billy? Look how big he is. I mean, that's what I say. Billy's always grown up in my talk. You need somebody there to say, if you're going down the aisle, come over here. If you're not going down the aisle, please take a seat. And you have to get it going because that will slow down your entire event. And if you do it all yourself, the bride usually is not out there in the right dress directing traffic, right?
No, that is the truth, right? And so that kind of skips ahead, but brings us to the point of the value that you get out of any of these positions, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that. I mean, the reality is you can choose your colors. You can choose your vendors. You can do all those pieces. But to his point, you can't be out there directing traffic while you're tucked away in your white dress. So that's where the professional comes in, right? And can help you to plan to that point, but also execute the day, right? And help you, we like to say, and we've said it before, keep you in that bubble of bliss where you can enjoy the moments. Someone can just tell you what to do next and you can go along and have the best day ever, right?
We get this question when we go live or we get a question on our social media all the time, like, hey, I'm 6 months out. What should I be doing? And for somebody to sit there and be like, oh, no, you're good. We're caught up. Like, I'll check with you in a month and because that's when we'll do this. And just to know, like, okay, I'm good. Because if you don't know, you're like, what? I'm getting married in a few months. What should I be doing? Like, that is a stressful thing also. And for those of you out there listening, again, don't stress. There's time. And if you have vendors, they'll reach out to you most likely, but you can reach out to them as well.
Yeah.
I just want to don't ramp up the stress and not.
No, I mean,
decompress everybody a little bit.
I'm hoping that in explaining these pieces, we are inadvertently helping with the stress because we're giving you the information that is useful to help guide you on what's going to work for you, right?
Yes. You don't have to talk anybody down. No, it's okay. Don't go to Vegas. Just walk away from the computer.
Yes, take a break or lean on somebody that you trust, right? So we'll go back to the different packages. So we were talking a little bit about 30 to 90 day kind of wedding management. And that'll also include obviously a walkthrough, like I mentioned, kind of final details, and then the rehearsal and day of coverage usually. The next thing that we're going to kind of get into
what's next
is the term day of coordinator.
I knew that's where you were going.
Okay. So in the industry, as a wedding planner, behind the scenes, let's say, right? That term doesn't really exist. But I get where it comes. But I get where it comes from.
The reality doesn't exist. Yeah.
Here's why. It would really be impossible for me to parachute into your event the day of and do a good job. Honestly, if I didn't know any of the players or hadn't been involved in creating the timeline and knowing the pieces that were involved, I really would struggle to run a successful event.
Yeah, because somebody would come up and say, "Hey, when is dinner served?" You're like, "I don't know."
Or you're
find
like,
the caterer.
yeah.
I mean, you would be just playing. You'd be just chasing your tail all
Yes,
day. I
yes.
couldn't even imagine doing that.
So when you consider this, because a lot of times that term is out there and people say, I just need a day of coordinator, or my venue requires a day of coordinator. A lot of times those packages will actually include more time than just the day of, right? They'll be maybe reaching out to you 3 to 4 weeks out to help with those pieces. So it's not impossible that the day of coordination is actually more than that, right? But you just want to make sure you know that beforehand, right?
Well, the way we do it is, when do you start officially?
So
if they get your planning light or your smaller
my
package?
coordination package starts at 6 weeks
6 weeks.
because I really want to be involved. I want to know who's going to be there. I want to be able to reach out to them. I want to take that off your plate at that point. And I want to be able to prepare myself and my girls to really run the event well.
Your girls, you mean your team?
My team.
Yeah. And the other thing, and again, I don't want to speak on behalf of any other vendors out there, but once you've, like, even with the DJ or the planner, they hire you a year out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we're like, okay, well, we'll send you some emails. We'll reach out to you closer to the event. But if something were to come up before then, we're not like, no, your time has not started yet. We still get emails or texts or questions randomly because you've hired us. Like, so we can still, I mean, we can't, most of the planners, if you hired the 6 weeks out, they're not going to go do walkthroughs and all that stuff because we have other clients that we have to cater to before them. But if it's just a question, like, we're on your inner circle already, we'll be your wedding bestie.
So what you're saying is, for us,
yeah. Like
yeah,
I said,
we want to, we don't speak for other, companies, but we are available. We always feel like, we want to be your wedding bestie. So if you have just a quick question, and you're 9 months away, but you only hired us for 6 weeks, we'll still be able to answer that question.
Yeah, because we had people will email somebody like, "Hey, I found this caterer. Have you heard of them?" And we're like, "Oh yeah, they're great. No, that if they're free, book them." Like, that's a very simple, just to say the person you already trust, whether it's your venue, whether it's your planner, whatever your florist. We all know the people that are in the area that do this, and the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes with that person or that company. But you can definitely, that's the things, like we always say, like, "Hey, I think I'm going to go with this caterer," and you're like, I don't, maybe here's another 2 that maybe you could reach out to. Something simple like that. I mean, like I said, they're not going to go with you on the tasting. Maybe if you hired them for the smaller packages,
right?
But check with them. Maybe they will. I don't know.
Yeah. So these are all, we're going to go back to this main point. Figure out what it is you're getting, right? So make sure that you're very clear, that you read the contracts, that you read the proposal, and that everything that you think is included is actually included, right?
Right.
Because you don't want those surprises. Now, I know that, it's helpful to have like friends and family that are going to pitch in. But even with my couples that have a big family or a big support system, they still lean on me, right? And I am there directing the aunts and the cousins, right? Because there's something about having that person who's in charge and can direct the event, because it's hard to get 200 people to do one thing to the next, or to make sure that all your vendors know what is happening on the day of the wedding, right? Like, and how to prepare for each thing that happens on your timeline.
I think if you go, most of you out there probably have someone that is married, that is close to you, that you trust, that you can say, give me your feedback on your day. And we hear, there's people that are in the industry that talk to us and say, "Man, if I had to do it again, I would absolutely have gotten a planner, or I would have not had Uncle Charlie do the pictures. I would have not had my fiance's friend from college be the DJ." Right. And again, I'm not trying to talk you that, because almost every wedding, there is somebody that's a family friend that does something that you can like lean on them. But just because your friend or your cousin is a photographer, maybe they do family portraits, maybe they do sports photography. They may not be a wedding photography. And I tell people all the time, wedding DJ and club DJ are 2 different skill sets. And just find out if they're comfortable in that environment. Right. Because you don't want to be afterwards been like, "Well, we saved a lot of money, but the pictures were awful, or the
Yeah.
party was lame,
Yes.
or whatever it is. I mean,
Right.
again, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just saying, like, the reason you hire a wedding professional, because they are good at weddings. We do weddings. Like 98% of our events are weddings.
That's true. And the difference is, and I'll just hit this point home one more time, the experience, your experience of your day, whether you enjoy it wholeheartedly or you're stressed, right? That's the difference right there in having people who know what they're doing.
And even like one of the things while we're talking about planning is I've talked to a lot of people that do a lot of corporate events. And corporate events, there's a lot of similarities, but it's still not a wedding.
Mm-mm.
And I always know the minute they say, "Hey, I'm going to send you a copy of the run of show," and I go, "Oh, the run of show. That's a
corporate term.
a corporate term. That's
Yeah.
a big event." And again, they do some massive events, and we would maybe struggle doing one of their events, but in the same way, it goes both ways. Because we usually refer to it as a timeline in the wedding industry.
Right.
But run of show, it's just very similar, but that is very much of a production, a big event type of a term, but it's just very different. So once again, people in their lane, there's a reason why you hire a plumber, not to do your electricity. That didn't come out right, but you know what I mean.
Yes, I do know what you meant. So what if, let's do a what if. What if you have someone who is part of the venue who's coordinating, right? But
Okay,
you're really
I'm with you.
okay. And you don't really know if you want to hire a planner, but you really feel like you need some guidance and you have some questions, right? And you want a timeline, but you don't know how to create a successful timeline. There is this kind of sweet spot that we've created through our brand called virtual planning. Okay.
Did we create it or did we just do it? I don't know if we created it.
We created it with our brand. I mean, like we didn't like make up the whole
we
thing, right? But there's other companies that do it as well. But I want to dive into a little bit like, what does that mean? Because I think it can be kind of confusing. Like, what exactly are you going to do for me, and what is the value that I'm going to get out of a virtual planner? You know, and so what we can do during these sessions. So if you go to our website, which is theweddingduo.co, you'll see our planning section, and it has different packages. And there's a one session, 3 sessions, or 6 sessions. And they're all 45 minutes long. They're Zoom sessions, right? Mm-hmm. They get recorded. You also get email correspondence. So we'll send you a questionnaire and figure out exactly your pain points for the wedding and what you want to discuss. And then we sit down with you one-on-one and go through your event and help you with all the pieces that you're struggling with. The other thing that comes out on the other side is we can create a timeline. I just worked with a girl and created her floor plan for her, right? Because she was able to send me the schematic for the venue and then let me know what tables were available. And we came up with a successful floor plan. So it can really help to lean on somebody, like we were mentioning, that has the perspective of being a professional, but it doesn't come with the price tag of, maybe flying us out to your event and having us actually run it, right?
Or even hiring somebody there. Because the big thing that we didn't talk about on this was people's budget. I mean, if you had the money, of course you would hire professionals across the board. The reason people use Uncle Charlie or with an uncle with an iPad to do their DJ is because it's cheap, it's affordable, and we don't have Daddy Warbucks isn't just writing checks for all this stuff, right? So that's the main reason. We understand that it's not always in the budget, which is why, but you still want that guidance. You still want that professional insight, right? Which is something we can offer virtually. Because even like people, I think automatically knee jerk to, okay, floor plan. Yeah, that would help. Timeline, that would help. But once you get in the weeds, like you were saying something like, when do I send out my invitations? When do I send out save the date? That kind of stuff. But also like, just how do you go down the aisle? Do you want to go down with the groom and both moms, maybe the groom and the officiant with all the groomsmen behind them? Are they going to be paired up? When did the flower girl ring bearer? Like, how many songs do I need? Just getting down the aisle. There's 1,000 different ways you can attack that and work with that, depending on what the venue looks like, depending on how many people, depending on how long the walk is. Just that one part, people are just like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think.
Right.
Like, I just assumed everyone was going to be coupled up walking down the aisle. Like, well, maybe, but what if it's lopsided? What if you don't want that? What if that's not the feel you want? What if you want more substance? And that's just going down the aisle. Every nook and cranny through this whole planning process, there are different ways you can do it based on your preference.
Right. And the reason we started offering this, in all honesty, is we were getting very specific questions. and we still do.
Very specific.
Very specific.
We get very vague questions too. Like, I need a song. Go do it. I'm like, what? Like, what's it?
So just questions in general. We just get a lot of questions, and we thought, how can we offer a service that allows us to answer your questions one-on-one? Because we can't get to all of them, unfortunately. And we try to do as much free content as we can, on TikTok, on Instagram, here with our podcast. We really try to give as much information and helpful tips. But there is something about having a one-on-one person that can evaluate your needs and then give you a solution, right?
Oh, for sure.
So that is
and the music thing as well. Because if you hire us for virtual, there'll be a day. Usually one of those sessions will be sitting down with me and just talking about your music selection, which is another whole thing.
Yes.
I'm trying to pick out flowers and a menu and the bar and music and linens and shoes and makeup. And I'm sorry, again, I'm not trying to stress them out, but there's just a lot. There's a lot going on.
And the thing about virtual planning is we will be a tool in conjunction with your vendors, right? We're not there to replace anybody. We're there to help set you up for success. So maybe you go over music with Dominic and select all the songs and he gives you suggestions. You can hand over your playlist to your DJ and it'll be ready to go, right? Or if they don't offer a very in-depth planning process.
Or if you have a friend or you're like, or we get this question a lot. My DJ asked me to send him 100 songs. I don't know what I'm like, seems like an odd thing for me as a DJ that they would ask you for what music you want to hear, but I ask them what they want to hear, but I have it. I don't say, I don't know what to play. Send me the music you want to hear.
Right.
But the other thing you can do is if you have an aunt or a friend who has said like, oh, I'll be your planner. And you're like, I did my friend's baby shower. I mean, it's fun. I can do it. And you're like, okay, they can come on one of the Zoom calls with us. And then so as we're explaining it, they can be like, oh, I see. The brides are like, oh, I like it this way. And your friend is like, okay. And then once we send the timeline over, she's not seeing it the morning of an hour before you're about to go down the aisle. She was there in the planning meeting. So if you have a friend or an aunt, they can jump on this virtual thing too. So that it's almost like a team effort. Even though we're the experts guiding it, she's going to be the one on the ground. She or he are going to be one on the ground the day of, guiding you through that day. And you will have more trust in them because they were in the meeting with us, right?
Exactly. So I think that we just wanted to make sure that y'all knew about this service that we offer and how valuable it really can be for some of you who are out there kind of struggling, but maybe, like we said, don't want to make the investment for a full-scale planner or have other plans for that role. We can absolutely help with all those pieces.
Plus, how fun are we? I mean,
we're pretty fun.
And I try to lighten the mood numerous times because people, like I said, sometimes the bride gets on. It's like, okay, well, I got that. Yeah. Okay, take a breath.
They're like out of breath already.
How are you? What is that? Your dog on your lap? Yes, it's my dog. When I'm like, okay, now let's get into it. Okay, settle that.
Yes. It's good to have some comic relief and realize that it's all going to be okay. Mm-hmm. It's all going to be okay. Something to keep in mind too for the planning sessions. You get a $50 credit to our Wedding Duo shop.
Ooh, we have a shop?
We do. And our shop has a lot of really fun, customizable pieces, champagne flutes, koozies, shirts, all sorts of stuff. So you get a $50 credit to use on any of those items. So that's an incentive in of itself.
I like when that always comes up together. Like we say, customized champagne flutes and a koozie for your beer. It's like the two extreme beverages and the two, you want beer? Or are you drinking
any
champagne?
Beverage.
Champagne or beer? There we go.
So we hope today's episode was helpful. We've enjoyed it, and we really appreciate all of our listeners, all of our followers. You can find us, of course, on TikTok, on Instagram. You can watch this episode on YouTube or listen to it wherever you podcast. But we are the Wedding Duo. We are super grateful for y'all, and we'll end it by saying what we always do.
It is a very personal day. Don't let somebody talk you into something you don't want to do or talk you out of something you have your heart set on, including us. Mm-hmm. Just because we said something like, oh, we prefer to do it this way. Because, of course, we have our way. We like to do it. But
sure,
I always tell people, that's just an opinion. That's just what I think works well. But what do you think? And go from there. So you should be asking that. Just the two of you and your soon-to-be spouse, put the blinders on, and just the two of you figure out what you two want.
That's not what we always say. That was way more than we always say.
Well, I put in a little extra. You're welcome.
So we'll seal it with a kiss. Happy planning, y'all.
Mwah.
Mwah. So
thanks for listening to our podcast. If you found any of this information helpful and you know someone who may be engaged or is a maid of honor, maybe you could tell them and share it with a friend.
Absolutely. So screenshot this episode, share it on Instagram, on Facebook, and tag The Wedding Duo. We promise to share the love back. Also, if you are interested in more resources or the show notes, you can go to theweddingduo.co. We have one-on-one virtual sessions, a shop, all sorts of fun stuff. Check it out.